So here we go. Uh, we're just waiting to go live in just a second. It actually usually starts earlier, so we're going to say welcome everybody. Welcome to Break the Trance. In just a second. It actually usually starts early. So welcome everybody to Break the Trance. I apologize for my fluctuating hair, but we're here on the our podcast called Break the Trance, where we encourage people to break unhealthy trances and to create healthy ones and experience healing through healthy trance work. I'm here with my co-host, Cassandra McLean, hypnotherapist. I myself am Albert Nurnberg, also hypnotherapist and hypnotist. And today we're talking about the freeze. We probably want to define what we mean, but we're both experiencing a freeze right now. Often when the camera goes, you're on, what do? You freeze. And the freeze is like a really interesting thing in our work, we would probably say as well. Like, what would you say? Why is the freeze important in hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and from your experience?
Sure. What we want you to understand today on Break the Trance, talking about Break the Freeze, is that part of the trance that we are in and under and surrounded by all the time, given our culture, the media, the cell phone that lives inside of the palm of our hand, is that it makes us like inactive. And that's what's holding us. And then inside of that, you also have freeze phenomena in your own mind, moments in time that happened long ago that you never resolved, and the part of you that was living through it got frozen in that moment of time. And in that frozen state, thinking it's still 1993 and mom's about to hit me with that spatula, that version of your energy, that part of your mind is like, I have to make decisions and prevent myself from getting harmed. That's a kind of freeze state. Another kind of freeze state is the fight, flight, fawn, freeze. It's,
Now,
oh my God, something's happening. I'm just going to do nothing, like a bunny rabbit freezes.
people
There
should
are many
probably
types of freezes. Sorry. Yeah, let's
we should
cover some more.
no, I think we should explain that there's a particular in people that do work around PTSD or trauma. There's this really powerful idea that when you experienced freezes earlier in your life, so for example, you almost got run over by a car, or God forbid, you were assaulted in some way, something along these lines, that you actually froze. Now, the interesting part isn't that you froze, that's normal and natural. The interesting part is that you never unfroze,
Mm-hmm.
that your freeze is still part of your kind of consciousness, and you can be triggered into that original freeze that now bleeds into your life, that makes you unable to make change or unable to confront your fears or the things that you need to confront. That's what is powerful about this stuff. That's why in therapy or form or hypnotherapy, we often go back and we try to figure out where the person was frozen and literally try to unfreeze them. But I think we're also saying that is that this freeze phenomenon is happening in a big way right now because the news has gotten extra scary and people are starting to feel like they are freezing to respond to world events because they are just like beyond our control. Bombs are bigger than we know. They're non-negotiable. An example of this is this missile business. I don't know if you see how fast missiles are landing in Iran and Israel and places like that in Lebanon. They happen instantly. Like it's not like you could look up and go, "Oh crap, I think there's a missile coming. I'm going to run out of the way." You never, that time does not exist. That for me, when I saw that, triggered a kind of freeze behavior. I realized I would never know if I'm about to be hit by a missile. I just wouldn't know. And there's nothing I can do. That feeling actually produces the freeze. I may be correct, that is not much you can do, but the freeze itself is not healthy. That's what keeps us paralyzed and
Well, there's a reason that human evolution came up with the freeze response. So there is a healthy version of it. The
yes.
healthy version of it is danger is happening. I need to observe and take in as much data as I can. So I'm not going to take action until I have enough information about the best action to take. So I'm going to freeze all response mechanisms and just see, okay, where are the exits? Where are the weapons? Who's coming at me? Where are my allies? Where's the nearest form of place to hide? That's where freeze is helpful.
I would add that I think the freeze actually has multiple purposes. So, for example, I think the scary side, though, we should say is the freeze often happens when when you're kind of really at the end, meaning animals that are freezing have discovered that there's no way out. The predator is right up against them, and freezing is a last ditch effort to maybe, just not move so that nothing happens.
Hmm.
Because predators often need movement, so it's an act of desperation by the unconscious in some cases. But there's another kind of freeze, which you're describing, which I think is what's produced by bystander effect, where let's say the missile is coming, and our unconscious tells us to look at what other people are doing. This is done unconsciously. So other people start running, I start running. There's a really funny example of this where there was a CrossFit group. I think that was jogging, maybe it was in France. So a CrossFit group happened to run past a cafe really quickly because they're CrossFitters. And the people in the cafe were like, "Oh my God, those people must be running from something." So there's a
Ah,
video.
for the speed in which they were running,
That's
it
right.
didn't look like people jogging. It was like, we got to get out of here.
That's right. So everybody in this cafe, was an outdoor cafe,
They
suddenly
got up and started running.
got up and they all ran away. And it's this phenomena, which is actually freeze and run. But they all freaked out and they all misinterpreted what was happening. Nobody said, "Oh, that's just some people jogging past." They thought, "Oh, there's some, they probably thought terrorists are coming down the road." And so they all took off. Um,
The imagination could have made up any reason for it, but the mechanism that caused them to run was operating much deeper than the level of thought or explanation.
yes, and a key part of this is that it's an example of it being maladaptive. Instead of you enjoying your espresso in the sunshine in the cafe, you're running down the street in a panic for no reason. So that's not good adaptation. Um,
It's not a good adaptation to 21st century America, but actually, in many parts of the world, even right now today, it's still a very helpful mechanism of survival.
yes, yeah, that may
And this
be
is,
true.
I think, I think we have to be responsible that we are running on, this is an exaggeration, but Paleolithic emotional systems.
Speak for
There's,
yourself. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
we've got a caveman's way of responding with immediacy to, well, to stimuli. And we like, because we're egoic and we are have the hubris that all the great classical literature warns, the heroes always fall for hubris. Hubris is thinking that you're bigger and better and stronger than you are. Humility is a virtue for a reason. Your conscious mind that's like, I've got everything figured out. If I saw CrossFit people running down the sidewalk, I wouldn't run. I'm smarter than that.
No, I would
No.
never do that. Yeah.
All humans, no matter how smart you are or think you are, you're running from a hardware, the nerves of your spinal cord, the essence of really what makes the whole thing called you what you think you are, is a system that's so ancient and so hardwired that you're never going to change it. So we have to be responsible for that rather than so stupid to be like, I can override it. I'll just think better thoughts and make better choices. You can't. Your spinal cord is responding faster than your frontal cortex by a friggin' long shot.
Well, you know what? You raise a very interesting point. So, can you change these kind of deep primal evolutionary instincts, given that we feel like we're living in a world that's become more dangerous, that there is danger going on right now, that we're at war, there's lots of chaos, and
There
there's
are
also
ICE agents in the airports separating mothers and their children already happened. Day one. Day
that's
one.
right.
Did you see this news?
Yeah,
Day one.
yeah. They're also scrutinizing you as you come through the airport, and so
The
yeah,
presence of intimidation, the
yeah.
presence of it's yeah. The the way that governments are unquestionably adopting authoritarian behaviors, i.e., becoming authoritarian, it's not it's not deniable.
No,
It's not an opinion. It's happening. There's a presence of intimidation in places where you used to feel safe and at ease.
that's right. Or you feel that you also felt that you had recourse, meaning if somebody, if some authority gave you a hard time, well, you could speak back, or you could ask for the manager. There are things that you could do. But yeah, there's a feeling right now that I think what's happening right now in the world is people are getting smaller. We're all getting smaller when
And
the
that's what happens when you freeze. Freezing is contraction.
right,
And
right.
this is a freeze response of, I mean, here we are talking about it. Oh my God, what's going on? Now airports are like chaos. And I mean, the image of just a brown mother with black hair and her brown daughter with black hair, is that those two qualities are enough to harden people's hearts when you see a mother and child hysterically crying as masked men like physically rip them apart.
Can I say something like
Who's
just
okay with that? Like
yeah,
I
who
don't.
is okay with that? Well, some people are okay with it. In fact, like Tommy Lahren famously said, she was totally fine with it. But let me say this one thing that I think right now we're in a world where Donald Trump is creating so much chaos for people
That
of
we're
all
frozen
kinds.
by it.
We're frozen by it. But here's the other thing: is what a lot of people do is they make this instant calculation. They go, "Is that going to affect me?" I know Trump is an agent of chaos and he's bad news, but maybe it doesn't affect me. And people make this determination that they are going to be okay, so they're okay with it. And what's interesting is that the number of people that are being affected by Donald Trump's chaos is growing exponentially every day. And sooner or later, it will be you because of the random quality of it. Yes, ICE maybe targets brown people more, but there's a time and a place where it might be you. And so that's why people have to stand up. And I also this want to point this out, this idea that you go, if you know that you're one of these people that goes, yeah, there's some bad shit going down, but I don't qualify. I'm going to be okay. You're actually, in my opinion, and this is a social comment, you're making the wrong call because this trend is like a wave and it's growing and it's continuing. Anyway, I think I apologize, we're a little bit off topic, but something I thought about recently. I should
Sure.
say, what I should say is I should talk about Phil Zimbardo because there are people who are experts on this exact phenomena. Phil Zimbardo is a famous psychologist. He did the Stanford prison experiment, I think, in 1971.
That's
I,
right. Ding, ding, ding.
I was lucky enough to interview him for a documentary I did called You Are What You Act, and spent an afternoon with him. And what's interesting about Zimbardo, later in life, I think he felt bad about the Stanford prison experiment because it seemed to be like an experiment that spoke to our worst qualities. Like basically the idea that,
Not only that, I mean, yes, that, but also he severely traumatized 24 college-age men.
yeah, that's right, he did.
As a
Yeah,
professor, this will be a
yeah,
fun experiment.
yeah,
Oops, just
yeah, that's
ruined
right.
24 lives and
Yeah,
changed everybody's thought about human nature.
yeah, yeah. So later, it's totally true. And later in life, he's a very moral guy. He becomes obsessed with with human heroism. He started to study what causes people to break the freeze. Now, he's talking about real situations where something spontaneous happens, like somebody gets hit by a car, or there's somebody with a gun, or and for some reason, some people will do the heroic thing. He also talked about this other cultural phenomena where people are frightened by a social trend, like the ones we've been discussing, and then some people step forward to do something about it. And he started to ask what makes those people different. And so there are some very interesting factors. So one is it's it's important to recognize that the freeze, like there's all these movies where people feel deep shame. There's like movies where somebody is there's a robbery and somebody points a gun at somebody and then the hero freezes and doesn't do anything. And then for the rest of the movie is like, basically torturing themselves, thinking they're a coward and a bad person until the scene reoccurs. And this time, the person goes, I'm not going to let this happen again. And they beat up the villain and they break the freeze and humanity is restored. Now, I want to say that this trope is actually a dangerous trope on some level, but it's also interesting on another. It's dangerous for people to feel like their instincts make them a bad person. So if you saw something genuinely shocking, what makes people freeze? It's something usually that you cannot understand. It's happening so quick and so fast that you don't understand what just happened. So
Mm.
you unconsciously freeze. You should never beat yourself up for the fact that you did that. That's
Right. This was
that's
my earlier phrase. I say we have to take responsibility. We have to be responsible for these ancient mechanisms that are actually the roots of what drive our behavior. And that also means you're off the hook in a lot of cases. Like, oh, whoops, that was, 10 million years of all of my ancestors showing up to say this is how to act. And
and
that's okay.
it's okay. And it's interesting to know even how the mechanism works because it might explain how you can break the freeze. So
Exactly. And that is what we want to segue into. We've covered a lot of different types of freezes and how they are being held in place by your subconscious mind. And so here on Break the Trance podcast, let's move into some actionable, helpful tips here, right? How can we break the freeze?
glad you asked. So so I just say so one thing a lot of people don't know is that there's a powerful effect that's not just the freeze, but there's something called bystander effect. And it's been studied. Bystander effect is the fact that when people witness, often in a group, something horrible going on, something terrible, like a car accident could be something, but also somebody being assaulted or somebody, being taken away or something like that, that what happens apparently is the mirror neurons in our brain fire and tell us to look closely at what other people are doing because in history what other people were doing often pointed to the safest situation. So so if other people were running away, then you should run away too. If other people are standing and fighting, then you should do that too.
It's
Now,
yes, and if
right.
the herd is having a mass response, then it makes sense for the individual to adopt and do that response. And also in that freeze, the bystander freezing, they're looking for the leader of the tribe. We're tribal brains. That's what I said, Paleolithic emotions. We were raised in tribes of like what, 20, 50, 100 most people for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, evolving this thing that's your body, that you think through, that you act through, that you feel through. They were not born 37 years ago. You started way, way long ago, and all of that encoding. Yeah, I really want to belabor this point because there's so much freedom in understanding this at a deep level. And these tribal beings had a tribal leader, and that was the authority. And when the tribal leader, your chief, your king, said, "This is what you're going to do," you did it, because not doing it could mean getting exiled, excommunicated, killed, all sorts of terrible, and it's a consequence you cannot risk. So all those bystanders are looking for the leader to tell them what to do. Either there's going to be a mass response, as you say, a whole group of people just start running. And the activation is, oh, those are people, I'm a person, they're running, I should be running. Boom, off you go. Or it's, I'm not the leader of the tribe, and that's okay. We want to develop leadership qualities, but there's nothing wrong with being a follower in certain contexts. American culture is like everybody should be a leader, leader. We can't just all be leaders.
No.
Some of us are doing other tasks that are also important to the collective. So those bystanders are looking for a leader. And so if you do wish to develop leadership qualities within yourself, it means taking action first. Be the first one to take action. And then you can start to develop this in small ways in your own life. It can be as simple as you're walking sort of leisurely, from your car to go into the grocery store, and you notice that somebody else is either coming in or going out of the door. Now, ordinarily, there's enough space between you and them that you just figure it out. But in this moment, you're saying to yourself, I'm the type of person who takes action first, who takes action where others aren't, who leads others or who see and witness my behavior. I'm going to do a quick little jog and grab the door for that person. these little micro opportunities that we have each and every day to develop ourselves towards whatever qualities we want more of in ourselves, we can be hypnotizing ourselves. I'm the type of person who strengthens my leadership qualities in micro opportunities that I find in each and every day. You can take that and say it to yourself every night before you go to sleep. Just keep saying it to yourself over and over again. That's the most simple way to start practicing self hypnosis. Choose that one and notice how you just naturally start showing up differently in life. You're not in the frozen in time, frozen in the conditioning of our oppressive society, frozen by the traumas you never knew even were the ones. Well, you're not frozen. You're choosing and programming yourself to be someone who takes action. And now you're in motion. And now where are you moving? Forward, onward with your life.
I can even add to this, which is that I mean, there's a bunch of research on breaking the freeze, and it's very intriguing. Basically, one of the things that happens is when you're in this group, you're a group of bystanders who are frozen and not doing anything. It's not just you're looking for the leader, but you're also you're just mirroring everybody else, and you're trying to sort of disappear into the pack. Now, what if intellectually in your brain I got to do something wrong is happening, and not only that, or not only that, this is dangerous, like we need to get out of here. But if you're in the freeze, you don't. If you're in the freeze, you don't do anything. You just freeze. You don't talk. Sometimes you barely think. The freeze is an overpowering, unconscious response. So what Zimbardo noticed was that, for example, there were two factors, or there were a bunch of them, but that would break the freeze. One of them was rehearsal. So if you knew that, let's say when somebody gets hit by a car and they need emergency help, and you had rehearsed running to an injured person before, maybe you're an EMT or something like that, then you can easily break the freeze and you run to the person who needs your help. But the other thing I have discovered, and I find this is absolutely true, is movement. When you're frozen, literally no part of you is moving. You're just standing there and you are not moving.
This
All
is
you
so
have to
smart.
all you have to do is move one finger. Move one finger, and you've started the process of reanimating. And so when you reanimate, you remember who you are, you remember your role in the situation, and then you do something. So movement is like one of the key factors to break the freeze. It's interesting to know because it has to do with the way the brain breaks down. The cerebellum is the movement or part of the brain, and when you don't move, the cerebellum dampens down. When you
Mm,
move, it starts to reawaken. So that's why movement actually starts to break the freeze.
love
So
that.
what? So
And
this.
so
So
I hear you, and I'm going to emphasize your point. Any movement at all,
yeah, maybe even blinking.
but doing it with conscious choice. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be frozen. I'm choosing to unfreeze, even if I'm just blinking extra for now, or doing this with my hand, or do anything at all. And you are now breaking the freeze. You're breaking the pattern the program is a pattern. It's a loop, and you're like, nope, not doing that loop. I'm doing this. I don't know what this is, but at least I'm not doing the other thing. And now through that, I have access to a whole new way of being.
What I think we want to ask too is people would probably say, well, you're talking about very dramatic circumstances, like,
We live in dramatic times, baby. You got to wake up.
but what about the times that are more um, like in the news? So I'll give you an example. I think there's a freeze going on right now to do with gas prices. So as people are reading that gas prices could, in effect, even double, or let's just say increase a lot. If gas prices go up by a lot, people do the math and they go, holy shit, I wonder if my lifestyle is sustainable. And they start to have a kind of panic response, which brings on a freeze where they start to feel like, oh, there's an oncoming like Mack truck coming my way, which is an economic disaster coming right for me. And you see how that kind of set of emotions would produce a freeze where people would go, well, there's not much I can do about that. It's just,
Right, but I need to stop you. I need to interrupt
yeah,
you because
stop me before I freeze.
you are reciting the trance
Economic,
that this whole
yes,
This whole
Yes.
podcast is called Break the Trance, but
Yes.
they've activated it in you. You just
Yeah.
said it as if it were a
Yeah.
fact. There is an
Yes.
economic collapse coming right for me. And as you said it, I was like, I don't identify with that at all. That's not
But
going on over here. My
but a lot
business
of
is
people do.
growing. Right. But repeating it is problematic, and
Right.
bringing awareness and attention to say,
Right.
whoops, I heard that leave my lips, but well, you're a hypnotist like myself. Every word counts. Your subconscious is listening to every syllable that you think. And if you're telling it economic collapse is coming, economic collapse is coming, it's listening. So stop telling it that.
Well, I'm simply referencing it because it's out there and people are feeling it. So I'm actually bringing it up so that we do not freeze. That is my point. But I understand your point. Yes, yes.
The delivery felt like I received it as like you're speaking an inevitability, and
Yeah.
that's we have to know that it happens for me too. I open my mouth and fucking something that somebody else put in there comes right on out. And it's like, oh, I remember hearing somebody on YouTube say that last week, and now it's like, this is my opinion on stuff.
Well, not
Whoop.
only that, what I would say, the way you notice these things happen, I've noticed this interesting phenomena. When the Iranians first closed the Strait of Hormuz and gas shot up like the next day, right away there was all this like doom and gloom, where like people were like, it's the end of the world. And I don't know, you went to the gas pump and gas maybe cost more, and it was a lot more, but it wasn't the end of the world. And in fact, people, it went back down and went back up. There's sort of this sense of people have the sense of like that thing that was supposed to be the end of the world really wasn't. And that it keeps happening to us, which is that this like news events and the way they're reported are either intentionally or unintentionally trying to trigger a freeze response, or at least a panic response, which often includes freezing.
Right,
And
but they don't want us to have the kind of panic that is the panic of action.
no,
So if my house is burning, some people do have freeze responses in burning houses. I have a friend who's a firefighter, and we were sitting around a campfire actually, and somebody asked him, "What's the most intense story from your firefighting career?" And this guy's been in thousands of burning buildings. And he said it was finding somebody completely frozen, and he's like, "Come on, we got to go." And they're just, it's like having to drag somebody out of the house who's just willing to die, but it's not a matter of will. There's no willpower involved. It's the ancient technology that just said the thing to do is go catatonic and in a burning building. But that's very rare. Most of us, oh my God, my house is on fire, run, right? That kind of panic does not put us in a freeze, it puts us in action. They, Big Brother propaganda machinists, right? The authoritarians and all of that, they don't want us in action. Action creates change. They want us in panic that is also frozen panic, so that our individual systems, the system of your body and mind, are under stress and duress and exposure to trauma, like seriously traumatic, traumatizing images, stories, disturbing, horrific things all day long. It's right here. Let me just see okay, there's more horrible trauma. Let me just try to go back to my regular life. Where we are in this state that it's unhealthy. It's cortisol activating, it's trauma response inducing. This is not as we spoke earlier, this is not an opinion or some loose use of the word trauma response. People are meeting the criteria for PTSD simply from looking repeatedly at images of traumatic things like war.
we should probably explain that
Down it.
there's an important distinction to have here, though, that 10 maybe 15 years ago, before 9/11, even longer, there was a view that you could not be traumatized in a true sense. You could be disturbed, but not traumatized by what you saw on TV and maybe by extension, what you saw on your computer or phone. And now that has completely changed. People have completely changed their tune. psychologists recognize that people can get traumatized by what they see on their TV. I've mentioned this interesting thing in my some of the clients I've come across. It's totally surprised me, which is that I have clients who come to me with either anxiety or trauma, and they're trying to figure out where did it start, why am I this way, and so we would do what's called regression to source. We try to regress them, try to get them to remember where this process began. And I was shocked to discover in many cases that people that have a kind of PTSD, anxiety, or trauma, it seemed to start when they saw like a movie when they were a kid. Often these are people that had an older brother or sister who kind of roped them into watching a horror movie before they were ready. And they saw this sort of like terrible horror movie, which then traumatized them. They had bad dreams and it entered their dreams and entered their psychology. And then they never healed from it. They never healed from it. And they have baseline kind of weird anxiety from this experience that other people would have thought, well, come on, well, I can't believe that watching Beware the Blob traumatized you, but it did.
Yeah.
And that's one thing
Yeah.
we got to remember about trauma. You don't have to go, you don't have to, there's no judgment here. If you were traumatized by Beware the Blob or by Gremlins, you were traumatized by Gremlins. It doesn't matter if the movie is ostensibly not that scary, you know. By the way, Beware the Blob is pretty scary. But
Okay.
yeah, but the point is that like if we were to sort of, this is why this is an important issue and why we're talking about it today. There are now, those experiences put you in a traumatic freeze, but we now have a culture that is repeating these patterns because, for example, you can get shocking news. It happened to me this week on your phone. This story about the Air Canada flight that crashed into a fire truck at LaGuardia Airport. Yeah, well, within hours of it happening, there was literally a video of it happening. And then, of course, you're going to be like, well, what happened? I'll look at the video, and it's pretty traumatic. And so this is happening all the time. Well, what does that do? One is you have traumatic imagery in your brain, but the second thing is repeating the freeze is actually giving your unconscious a reason to practice freeze behaviors. And it's telling you that you are powerless in this crazy world.
So how
And
do we break this freeze? And one, maybe the most powerful thing we can do is not put ourselves in those situations of becoming frozen or entering that trance of, oh my God, the world is horrible and I'm now traumatized, which is when you said, oh, well, you want to kind of see it and there's the video. I don't want to see it.
yeah,
I don't allow that stuff into my consciousness. I was just having a night with a friend at her house the other day, and her daughter wanted to put some scary movie on, and I was like, no, I don't let that into my consciousness. I am very well aware of the horrors of this planet, and I don't need any more coming in through my eyes or ears, not on purpose. I see no benefit to watching scary movies, and I will not participate. And I won't watch these snuff films of people getting killed in the streets. I don't want to put that here. I know it's happened. Knowing is enough to armor me with a fight. I
can
don't
I
need that here rattling around, disturbing me. And you shouldn't want
exactly?
it either.
Yeah, I think maybe by our own words in this very podcast, we said we used to think, or people psychologists used to think, that you could not be traumatized by your phone. And the answer is yes, you can be traumatized by your phone. So yes, I should have been more judicious. I think I was intensely, because it's a flight that I know people that take that flight. And so I was concerned about what happened. But I
Mm,
think you're right, is that you can read about it first and decide if there's a reason maybe why you need to see it, which usually there isn't.
almost
But
never.
yeah, there almost never is. And it's just, you don't have to appeal to this part of your nature, to like the rubbernecking part of your nature, to try
Right.
to, you have to see this traumatic event. Yep.
Right. You want to appeal to the part of your nature that says, I take good care of my body and mind.
Protect your peace. Protect
Right?
your peace.
Yes.
Exactly. So,
Yes.
yes. And it's funny, I think that this is an important distinction. Like in the past, I was a reporter, so I was like, you got to look at it. But yeah, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't.
Yeah, if you're a reporter for the news, you do have to look at it, but you're not in
Yeah.
that role anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So, sorry. So where we were going generally is that there's a wider phenomena of the culture and our devices pushing us back into freeze states. Now, why does that matter? One, you don't want to be stuck in old traumatic freezes that are no longer useful for you, meaning, yeah, you froze it maybe way back then, but it's unlikely that that will help you in the meeting or in, any kind of situation that just resembles a trigger that makes you feel that freeze. Second,
Before we
if,
move on to second,
okay,
I want to add something to point one, which is the language choice you made was you don't want to be stuck in old traumatic freezes. And I'm going to pull that
parse.
apart and make it a bit more nuanced. You are not stuck in an old traumatic freeze, but if you'll permit me this more poetic language choice, there's this psychic energy. You have like a total amount of whatever, a million units of psychic energy. And it's being like the bandwidth of your laptop, like some is going to photos and some is going to apps and whatever. There's pieces, there are units of your total amount of energy as a human being, which is finite. I mean, spiritually, you can break through, blah, blah, blah. But for 99.99% of us on planet Earth, our humanity is going to be limited to a finite amount of energy in a lifetime or in a mind power, units of mind power. And what's frozen isn't you're stuck in, it's that you're this whole collection and part of your energy is stuck, frozen in a time when things were really hard and you were confused and lost. And that's what's stuck. You're not stuck in it, it's stuck in you. And things that happen or things you even think activate it, like you open an app on your laptop. Now I'm opening this and using this to put my data into. If I put it into this kind of spreadsheet and hit enter, and it's a trauma spreadsheet, it's going to put out danger, danger, warning, do this, horrible things. Or we unfreeze that energy and repurpose it to a higher purpose, like whatever your actual goals in life are, or working on that passion project, or meditating, or learning how to cook better. Whatever you want, you can free up that energy and put it to good use. But that's what we need to unfreeze bit by bit by bit when we're speaking of this regression or stuck in childhood trauma frozen.
I should
That's
just
point.
explain. I have a slightly different take, which is partly influenced by the famous trauma specialist Peter Levine, who says that literally you are, like, I mean, I think there's different takes on this, that you literally are stuck in these freezes. And there's like these interesting examples. If you've seen somebody triggered by a traumatic freeze, they actually sometimes change. And they actually start, in movies, it happens all the time with villains or who are traumatized. They actually start talking like children. Now, why are they talking like children? Because they are pulled back to this childhood trauma, and that's who they are in that moment. They're
Yes,
a child. So I do
100%.
yeah, I do think that traumatic freezes can literally pull you back in time. And you can also explain that, again, the one reason why they're so maladaptive is because if you're having an experience, a classic example is it's why couples fight. There's a theory that the reason why couples fight as much as they do, even couples that love each other and get along very well, is because they're in the business of triggering each other's childhood traumas. So they're both being dragged back. And why does that matter? Because if I
And that's why they
respond,
chose each other as partners, because they're always going to be trying to resolve the things they never could with their parents. I mean, this is like,
that's maybe
story 101.
the good side of it. But the bad side of it is if I'm responding to you, if I'm triggered by what you just said, and the part of me that's responding is my 7-year-old hurt child part,
Right.
then I am not responding in a mature, balanced way. And
Correct. Not even
and
close.
yeah, and so then you're kind of in your right to go like, you sound a bit juvenile right now, and you would be right. And then of
Yeah.
course that would trigger me further, and you can see how that escalates. Um, so so
I
what
think both are true. I think that
yeah,
it's stuck in you, and then when it activates, you become stuck in it.
stuck in it. And we should really make clear that these things do heal. They really do heal. And how do they heal? They heal
With
like this.
hypnotherapy at
Right.
hypnotherapy.now.
Yes, there's a fantastic protocol that is famous called the Visual Kinesthetic Dissociation Protocol, also called the RTM protocol, but there are other names for it too, fast phobia release. I'm just saying it fast because there's a lot of them. And those protocols have been shown to be very effective. People are probably, some people are listening going, what? I never heard of that. It's weird that they are still underground. They're practiced commonly by NLP specialists, hypnotherapists, probably psychologists and psychotherapists to a certain measure, but they can pretty well treat some extremely difficult PTSD responses and also people going back to their childhood freezes. And what happens is, like, how do you know you're cured and if this process actually works? Well, something happens that would have triggered you, and you don't go back to your childhood freeze. You don't. You respond to it with your full present adult personality and go, okay, I understand what's happening. Here's my answer. And there's a distinct difference. A healing has happened, and now you have changed, and this happens all the time. People need to know this. People heal from these things, they get better, and it happens all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Believing that your healing is possible is very important to it happening.
Yeah, that too. So on our subject that your phone is freezing you, your computer is freezing you, I you were right to point it out that I kind of experienced it, but I'm pointing out that I noticed I was experiencing it. I started reading the financial news. Gas prices, there's a theory that gas prices could double. So I'm like, how do people survive economically if gas prices double? Well, we survived COVID, we've survived all kinds of other weird stuff. Like, just because gas prices are probably not a good thing, but it doesn't mean the end of the world, though there's people saying that.
Right. Well, they're putting enough pressure on society that society will begin to reorganize. You know, when Venezuela was at its worst point and the money was so worthless, many of us have seen the images of women would make purses and wallets out of $100 bills, not US money, they're worthless money. That's how
Venezuela,
worthless it was.
yeah,
And sell it for like $1 and it would have been worth, like 500,000 Venezuelan pesos. It's
yeah,
like all I can do with this is try to sell a handmade wallet like a kid would sell like a duct tape wallet. When Venezuela was at its worst point, because the money had become so worthless, what occurred is that there became a completely separate economy. There was the legitimate economy with the Venezuelan pesos and the money that the government was using. The people were not using that money. They had been funneling in US dollars from friends, from family, from scrimping and saving and getting access to US dollars, US dollars. Everything that mattered to the average person in Venezuela was at a completely separate economy that the government knew nothing about and was not participating in any way. It was an underground economy or cash US dollars, and that's really all that matters. The when the pressure gets so much, things will just they shift because they have to. So if this government that thinks it's so smart, that is so staggeringly stupid, thinks we'll just keep fucking bullying everybody and squishing them down and they'll just keep going down, you are grossly, grossly overestimating what pressure can do. Pressure forces change. And this country is well overdue for a massive change in response to whatever this nightmare is. It's going to happen. We are getting activated. We don't even need to know what's coming next. Change is going to happen because they keep forcing the catalysts of change. So good, do it.
I like your speech, by the way. That was good. That was good. I agree. It's like I'm noticing this other factor too. It's the little people. Well, I include myself as a little person at this point, where the little people, right and left in every country, are being fucked. Like fucked. Sorry, is maybe the wrong word, but just are suffering. The little people are suffering. They're getting poorer and they're getting pushed around, and they're not taking it anymore. I think that you're right. People are starting to fight back, and the real fight back hasn't really even started, but it's gonna start.
It
There's a
is.
theory that it's starting in Russia, it's starting in other places. The people have been pushed around for so long, and it's also clear. I think before we thought, oh, maybe Putin's not so bad, maybe Trump is not so bad. No, that the reality has become crystal clear. People know who the villains are. People know what's wrong with the world. You don't need a lot of analysis to figure it out. And I guess we're kind of going off topic, but it's true. It's part of breaking the trance. It's part of breaking the trance. Remember we talked once about police in the brain, but there's also bully in the brain. When people bully you, they are trying to install themselves in your brain as a permanent form of intimidation. So whenever you see them, you actually freeze. That's a thing that happens. Bullies have observed that they've scared people so much that when the person sees them, the person kind of almost freezes and pisses their pants. And that delights the bully. It's a real human reaction, but part of the game is that we have to get the bullies out of our heads so that we can go on with our lives and break the freeze and break the trance. Um,
Yep.
the interesting thing that trance itself, it's fascinating. We never mentioned this, but trance itself probably emanates from traumatic freezes. When people go into deep trance, their bodies freeze in effect. Now, there's two kinds of freezes. I've studied this phenomena. So one is tonic immobility. Tonic immobility is the panic freeze produced by extreme danger. And both tonic immobility and atonia. Atonia is also probably called somnambulant trance, where the body just essentially is kind of paralyzed by trance, look the same. The difference is somnambulant trance is pleasant and maybe even fun, while tonic immobility is terror filled, but they look the same from the outside. Now, the reason I bring this up, it's likely that forms of hypnotic trance borrow from the freeze mechanism, in that some aspects of the freeze mechanism produce trance, and people who are frozen actually are in trance. They
Hmm.
are in trance, and that's
Oh,
why.
absolutely. If
Yeah,
somebody's in a trance state and you say, "Quick, give me the wallet out of your pocket," they're just like, What? Yeah."
yeah, they are in trance, and they're also like, I can't do. The trance is partly like I can't do anything. If you've ever been with somebody who's you're trying to talk out of a freeze, they would tell you they're just like, there's nothing I can do. They're in a trance,
Mm,
there's nothing I can do. And that's why you got to bring them further out of the trance before anything can happen. That's why, and it's interesting to
right.
know, if we were talking about a fight back mechanism,
So
I
one
sometimes,
one way you might do that, as you said, was just get that person. If you're talking to somebody and they're in that state, and I've been with people where you're like, "Oh my God, this person's in crisis," and I'm trying to, what you suggested earlier, get them to start moving a part of their body,
yeah, it might
even if
explain
it's,
why.
"Can you please pass me that water? Can you go get that for me? Can
Yeah.
you get me some paper towels from the kitchen?" Just make them move their body. That will start to, as you say, shake off their trance. Then you can address something meaningful at a deeper level.
There's another part of this too, of course, I just should mention it, which is moving the eyes. Because when part of being in a trance, the eyes fixate. So the eyes focus on something, but it can happen as an internal thought. You're so obsessed with internal thought, like gas prices are going up or whatever it is, something nightmarish to you, that you cannot be, nobody can talk to you. You're so deep in that thought, you are frozen. Now,
Mm,
the person just starts moving their eyes around, the fixation process that is part of trance is broken. And now they can start thinking again and then acting again, and they are out of the trance. So there is a lot we can do. I think there's the belief that there's nothing we can do, or that we're powerless in the face of these tools, in face of these spectacles, which is maybe another thing too. We were talking about something terrifying that's going on, which is that one reason why Trump is so powerful right now, and so are, I would say, so is Netanyahu, and so is Putin. Why are they so powerful? Because they are the men of action. They are doing stuff. They are launching missiles. They're
they
dropping
don't
bombs.
even think twice.
Yeah,
It's only action.
and then they talk about it.
Misguided, ill-advised action, but they
Yeah,
don't hesitate to take it.
action is so much more powerful than words that allows them to define reality. So, what the answer, to a certain extent, if the wrong people are taking action, the answer is for the right people to take action. I'm not saying other people should be launching missiles, but I'm saying other people should just be taking action.
I
And
love what you just said. Action is so much more powerful than words, that
yeah,
it's what's defining reality.
yes, yes, and it is for so, and that's why, if you look at there's a really weird aspect to Trump's strategy, which I would describe as escalating action. So, meaning
Mm,
the moment he was elected, he started signing these bills
immediately. Yep.
immediately. So he's action man. I mean, and then as he continues escalating he creates a police force, which is like an action police force. And then he creates a bunch of wars, which are action wars. Trump is action man right now. And you can't defeat,
Action for chaos and evil.
That's
but it's
right.
action.
That's right. Exactly. It's action for chaos and evil, but it is action. And most people are just in a freeze watching it happen.
Yes.
And the only way to do it is one,
Wake
move,
up.
wake up, break the freeze, move your eyes, move your body, take action, and you can be action man too, action man or woman. Your action can be peaceful, loving, socially changing, but it can be action still.
And
Action
how
has,
do you become this action person the fastest way possible if that's not your natural wiring already? It's by taking on the identity. I am the type of person who will take action first. I'm not waiting to see what other people are doing. I'm going inside of myself, looking for highest wisdom. How can I be the most helpful right now today? What step can I take right now to be in action towards creating the world I want to live in? I'm the type of person, because identity precedes everything that you think, do, strive for, avoid. It's who are you fundamentally as a person. And that is not fixed. That is a phenomena of your creation. It can be conscious creation or unconscious creation. But with conscious creation, it's like, I don't care whatever my programming says I'm supposed to be. I'm going to choose that who I'm creating myself to be from this moment forward is somebody who takes action, taking massive action in the service of what I believe is a better society than the one we're in right now.
I totally agree. And the only thing I think we should, to make it more useful, is to say action can be, can be very loving, can be very small. Hug somebody who needs a hug, compliment somebody who needs a compliment, be kind. It doesn't have to be, we're not talking about blowing things up at all. We're just talking about these, that's action too. Action
Yes.
is somebody, it's being in the moment,
And
doing
call
what,
your Congress people and call your governors and call your senators and say, hey, I'm your constituent and I don't like what you're up to. Fight
or
for this instead.
yes, and also make change in your life. We're talking about things like moving, move,
We got
take,
to save some of these goodies for our future episodes.
yeah.
So be sure to subscribe to Break the Trance on Hypnotherapy Now YouTube channel for the full episode of this enlightening discussion and future episodes of Break the Trance.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. This has been a wonderful conversation. I am Albert Nuremberg, hypnotherapist with Cassandra McLean, also hypnotherapist. We are together, Break the Trance, where we rave and have fun and joke around and sometimes say something serious as well. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been great. Thank you, Cassandra.